Hi everyone, welcome back to the 2020 Rooted in Change Good Food Summit, virtual summit I should say. Hopefully everyone had a chance to grab some food, stretch their legs, grab some fresh air, and had some reflection time on our first, on the morning, specifically around equity in the food system, and just a great panel, and just again, thank you to everyone who participated in that. Our next session coming up is Relearning Food Literacy as the Route for Change. And I'll introduce Marcus and Janelle, who will be leading this, this section for the afternoon. And without further ado, come on up.
Thanks, Rudy. Appreciate it. Welcome to Relearning Food Literacy as the Roots for Change. My name is Marcus Lobb. I'll be co-hosting with Janelle Hatch for the Good Food Summit this year. Wanted to thank everyone for joining. Obviously, this is a very unique year for the Good Food Summit, and there's been a lot of energy and work that's gone into planning this that we've been privy to see behind the scenes. So first of all, I want to thank them all for the work they've done. We are honored to be able to present on the topic of food literacy. But before we begin, we'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the First Nations territory and the people whose land this has been home since time immemorial. The conference itself is being hosted on the land of Lekwungen-speaking peoples, known today as the Esquimalt and Songhees Nations. So just a little bit about your moderators for today. My name is Marcus Lobb. Happy to have the chance to present alongside Janelle, who I've worked with for the past year. A little about myself. I have been working in educational gardening and food literacy initiatives for the past 10 years. Primarily, my experience has been focused on garden design and implementation, as well as curriculum development, experiential learning. Over the past 3 years, I've had the pleasure of working with Farm to School BC and helping to support schools through my role as the Farm to School Capital Region Animator. I was also very fortunate to be able to help coordinate the Farm to School National Conference that took place in 2019, hosted here in Victoria with 300 delegates. Now I'll pass it over to Janelle.
Thanks, Marcus. So my name is Janelle Hatch, and I go by pronouns she, her. My passion for food and nutrition, I think it all started from when I was growing up on a small farm with a very large vegetable garden on Salt Spring Island. And now I live in Victoria and have done so for the past 15 years. And I'm a mother of 2 school-age children. And we as a family work to grow and enjoy harvesting and connecting with the land and the people in our community around food and food literacy. I currently work in as a Healthy Schools Coordinator with Island Health. As well, I work with CR Fair doing food literacy coordination work. And both I find to support my passion. And I really enjoy working with the community and with partners such as Marcus with Farm to School BC. Next. Thanks. So just to go through our agenda for today, over the next couple of hours, we're really excited to be bringing you this session today on food literacy. And in the session, we will focus on the power of food literacy in creating positive change in our communities. So we decided to frame this session around one big question. And so hoping that you can think about this throughout the next couple of hours, and then we'll reflect back on this after you've had a chance to be in your breakout groups as well. And that big question is, how can food literacy lead to changes for a better food future? So we'll be breaking that down a little bit during our time together this afternoon. So in the first part of the session, Marcus and I will be providing you with some information as to what's happening nationally, provincially, as well as locally around food literacy. We will then be joined by a panel of enthusiastic food literacy educators from within our community, and they'll be sharing with us their experience and expertise, and we'll be talking to them a little bit before breaking off into groups, and you'll each have a chance to then have a smaller, more intimate conversation around topics specific to their areas of expertise on food literacy. Then we'll be joining back together as a larger group at the end, and finally ending off with a call to action on how we can all be coming together and combining our efforts to enhance and promote food literacy within our community. Thanks. So before we dive in and look more at programs, just to provide you briefly with a context and our working definition of food literacy here in our community. And I put this photo on here because it makes me smile. This is actually my two kids. And so I wanted to read to you just a couple of quotes here around literacy and food literacy as you read through our definition. So literacy is a shape-shifting knowledge, skill, and culture, everywhere at once capacity that affects many aspects of someone's life while at the same time affecting our whole society. That's one on literacy that I thought was very poignant to our topic. The other one specific to food literacy, the concept of food literacy is being reframed as an avenue for social change leading to food systems transformation. So that's just from just 2 years ago, and that's prior to the pandemic, of course, and things have shifted and changed even more so over this past year. Next. So just to give you, this is just to give you highlights and a snapshot of a few different organizations working at the national level around food literacy. So you may recognize some of these, such as Food Secure Canada, Community Food Centres Canada, and I know we have organizations in our community that are considered community food centres. Unlock Food is from Dietitians of Canada, and then of course Canada's Food Guide is all around food literacy as well. The one that I wanted to talk to for just a moment is the Coalition for Healthy School Food. And they bring together over 120 different organizations from across Canada. And all are advocating for a national school food program. And you might think, why am I talking about this? School food programs, wouldn't that just be about access to food? But really, school food programs is so much more. It really is foundational to food literacy within our schools. And so it's wonderful that this national coalition has come together and is advocating, and we're doing a lot here locally and provincially as well. I'm working with CR Fair as well as with Farm to School and other organizations within our community to really be promoting and advancing the work here in alignment with what's happening provincially and nationally as well. So just wanted to highlight what's happening in Ontario around food literacy, because Ontario and British Columbia, I think, are really leading the way in terms of food literacy work across Canada. So a group of dietitians working in public health actually started the work in food literacy in Ontario, and this work has been supported since 2012, supported actually through funding through the Public Health Ontario, and as well as through other grants. They work closely in partnership with researchers and with policymakers, And so it's really exciting to see that the work that they're doing is creating such a shift in the conversation around food literacy in Ontario. However, you see there, they have done a lot of work around defining food literacy, but we actually define it a little bit differently here in our community and in British Columbia. And you can kind of see that in the work in the projects and organizations that are doing the work here in BC. Next. So in British Columbia, I just wanted to highlight a few different organizations and initiatives that are really doing so much for food literacy. And there are actually quite a number of organizations being funded through Ministry of Health for the work that they're doing on food literacy. So organizations such as Farm to School BC, such as the Association of BC Farmers Markets, Food Skills for Families, Healthy Schools BC, what am I missing? As well as the health authorities too in their work. And all are working very much in partnership with academic partners too, through SFU, through UBC, through Kwantlen. So, and not to mention that there's so much groundbreaking work happening within our Indigenous communities across the province. They're really leading the way on sharing Indigenous food knowledge and skills, and that's incredible food literacy work that is so instrumental to the movement here in British Columbia. Next. So coming down now to what's happening within our region on food literacy. So here within the CRD and all the work that we're doing. So I wanted to first mention that in our work, we strive for justice and belonging. So this may be a reframe and different wording. Some of you may be much more used to the terminology diversity and equity. I really like the terminology that is being used within CR FAIR and the work that they're doing around justice and belonging. And when determining the programs and initiatives to highlight within this session, we really wanted to highlight those initiatives and organizations that are doing the hard work around justice and belonging within their own organizations, and then advocating for change within our local and more broadly food system as well. So work that I'm doing with CR FAIR, I'm really excited to tell you about. We have a food literacy steering committee. So this is around connecting and advancing the work overall within our community around food literacy. So we do this in a number of ways, in organizing different events, in gatherings, normally in person, has been online. We did a great webinar series this last spring when COVID was in full swing, and development of indicators and much more. And I'll be coming back to talking a little bit more about engagement in this at the end of our session together today. So next. Great. So I wanted to highlight now, Marcus and I will be highlighting some of the wonderful initiatives and programs within our community. And really, I was really inspired to hear about this group earlier this fall that came together, the Youth Food Justice Group. And this is under the Youth Food Network through CR FAIR. And they're coming together around 5 pillars in relationship, learning, community involvement, leadership, and activism. And they've just put together this fantastic handout that I clipped this from on ways that food leaders can also get involved in food justice work within our community. So this is really exciting. So I encourage you to take a look through this and see how you're engaging around food justice, and maybe some additional ideas if you want to engage further. Next. So I believe Linda and the video this morning shown at the beginning of the day today really highlighted all the amazing things that have been happening in our community around growing food. And growing your own food is such a wonderful food literacy activity. And it really was able to grow and thrive in times of the pandemic. I wanted to just highlight one particular program here, and that's the Welcome Gardens through VERX. So this is a wonderful program that came together a number of years ago now. And I love what they say about their programs. So they say the Welcome Gardens include people from a variety of different backgrounds, diverse heritages, ages, languages, and abilities. So it really is about building connectivity and community, as well as coming together around food, which we all love to do. Next. Another piece that is so important is around the neighborhood food networks that continue through all kinds of things. And they organize so well at the neighborhood level and really engage people at that community level, which is so wonderful. I wanted to just mention a couple. Gorge Tillicum Urban Farmers. So I'm fortunate enough to live in that neighborhood, so I'm a part of that group and network and know how much they do. And it really is about sharing information, expanding understanding, inviting participation, and strengthening community bonds. And even they were able to run a few very COVID-friendly garden tours over the summer and fall as well. So they've continued to thrive within the community. I also wanted to mention Souk Food Chi. So they're really around working to create vibrant, sustainable food systems in the Souk region. Really exciting always to see the work that they're doing and the events that they run within that community. And last but definitely not least, I just wanted to mention the Galliano Community Food Program. They have so much going on Galliano around food. They support school gardens, they support school food literacy programs, food banks, community skills-based programs. So they have a lot going on, and it's wonderful to see that community engagement. So you'll see here a slide and you'll wonder, why is this slide empty? But that's because we want to ask you a question, all of you to engage with us in this poll. Lisa, can we get the poll on social media?
Yeah, it's up there.
Wonderful. So please do participate in this poll. We wanted to mention social media because it's been so prominent since people have been, sticking around home and around their own communities so much more, but people are reaching out in different ways and engaging in different ways around food literacy, and social media has been very strong in this. And so we were wanting to know what sorts of social media are you engaging in? So thank you. We'll just give one more minute here for our poll. Marcus, do you want to run down there? I can't
Sure, I can
read.
go take a peek.
Marcus is going to help me in reading what the poll results are there. So thank you.
Instagram's way out ahead.
Oh, wow.
52%.
So Instagram, way out ahead.
Facebook is at about 30%.
Facebook next at 30%.
Twitter and YouTube a little less.
Okay, and a little less for Twitter and YouTube. And I hope too that you'll put some of your favorites in the chat. So use your chat function right now and let us know what are those wonderful organizations or individuals that you follow on Instagram that are really inspiring to you. So please do let us know. Now I'm going to pass it over to Marcus here to continue on highlighting programs and initiatives in our community.
Great. Thanks, Janelle. And thanks for filling out that poll. I look forward to taking a closer look at it later. So a little bit on the topic of schools. I mentioned I worked with Farm to School BC. I've been heavily involved in school meal programs, cooking classes, and gardening for the past 10 years. And I wanted to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about the way in which teachers and community members are actually really making a big push at changing the culture in schools. So food literacy opportunities are continuing to grow in schools with ever new programs and funding opportunities emerging. Behind much of this work is the dedicated efforts of food champion teachers and parents, with local and provincial organizations helping as well. School gardens continue to pop up and emerge in many schools and schoolyards, and many of these programs are being supported by nonprofits with school gardening programming designed to be linked to the BC curriculum. I wanted to talk a little bit about the pictures that were on this slide. If we could bring up that slide, please. Thank you. On the far left, you'll see this picture of just apples that actually came from Salt Spring Island. When I visited Edward Milne last fall, a teacher there, foods teacher there, had brought their class out and prepared this, and had actually invited an elementary school to come and participate in a tasting of all these different apples. And I thought it was a really amazing way in which older students are mentoring in some way or sharing their excitement with the next generation. In the middle there is Matthew Kemshaw, who has been working with SD62 as a garden coordinator, and this came to be through the work of the teachers and administration within that district that raised funds in order to create his position to support secondary schools in the district, and he's been also supporting, with the help of Victoria Foundation funding, elementary and middle schools over the past few months. And on the far right, one of the programs that I think has had the biggest impact in the times that I've worked with Farm to School BC is actually salad bar programming. Most of the salad bar programming comes through funding from Farm to Cafeteria Canada, which is the case with this one here at Colquitt's School here in Victoria. Government and municipal in our region have been doing a lot of work, and I just wanted to highlight, I know that they'll still be spoken to a little bit more moving forward in the conference, but this was an amazing program that happened this past year that really made a major push in light of COVID to bring food literacy and food security to the greater population. This was the Get Growing and Growing Together programs that launched with a huge influx of funding into the community dedicated to local food projects. I was fortunate to get to support the Get Growing program in my role with Farm to School BC, and in partnership with LifeCycles Project Society, we hosted over the course of 4 weeks seedling drop-off distribution sites at schools, and in total distributed over 12,000 seedlings to 1,200 families, 300 of which were first-time growers. We also supported a dozen schools. Now it's time for another poll. So we have 3 questions here, and the purpose of these polls, as these polls are going to lead into our panelists, is to learn a little bit more about who is in the audience, and to help inform the panelists of also who is in the audience. So the first question we have here, I think it will pop up on the screen. Yeah, who is on the session with us today is the first question. Who is on the session? And we have some prompts there, but if you don't fall into any of those categories, do click other, and if there's... Yeah, sure. We'll allow that to be up for a minute. And if it slows down with the... Yeah, sure. Janelle's gonna... We've got a monitor down here in front of the stage, and Janelle's gonna relay that information maybe over to the side. Awesome. Backyard gardeners, community garden coordinators. Okay, we're getting some.
It's so wide-ranging. We have food enthusiast, business owner,
Food enthusiast, food magazine. Okay, Yeah, let's share the results. Sounds good. Looks like it's slowing down.
Yeah. Just a huge range. It's wonderful.
Has it been shared, or I'm not? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. So that's great. So now we can move on to our second question. So our second question is, where are you joining from? So type your specific community into the chat. I think we have some prompts with this one too. Right. There we go. Okay. Gulf Islands.
Oh, from Lower Mainland, even
Central Vancouver Island.
BC.
Edmonton, Alberta. Nice. Elsewhere in BC. I know some people from elsewhere. Where is elsewhere anyways? All right, I think we could put those results up there too. And then we have one final question here.
1 second.
Oh, okay, wait, they're telling me 1 second.
Yeah, most people from Victoria.
Okay, most of the people are from Victoria.
Yeah. Okay.
We're good? Okay, so our final question, thank you. What is your favorite way to learn about food? Again, we have some prompts, but feel free to put in any other thoughts you might have.
Okay. Votes coming in.
We got family, friends, yeah, it seems to be cookbooks, workshops,
Okay, eating together.
eating together, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Talking to farmers.
Talking to farmers, right?
Great. So podcasts.
Podcasts.
Programs, workshops. Friends.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna close down the poll, so get it in there if you haven't. Great. Thank you everyone for filling that in. Okay, so this brings us to the most exciting part of our session, when you no longer have to hear from Janelle and myself and you get to hear from the panelists. So we're fortunate to be joined by 5 incredible panelists today. We have with us Leah, Judith Lynn, Matthew, PEPÁŽIE, Kayla, and each of them have their own unique experiences and knowledge in the area of food literacy and education practices. Each of our panelists have rich backgrounds and stories to share about the important role that food literacy plays in our society. The panelists have agreed to introduce themselves, and along with an introduction, we have asked them to consider the following question. What have been your greatest joys, and what have been or are your biggest challenges? Janelle and I created an order for the introductions, and we will begin with Judith Lynn.
Okay, I'd quite chill Hela. My name is Judith Lanarni, and I'm the Ecosystems Director for the PEPÁŽIE Foundation. It's a broad question to start off our time with, and I'll try to answer it succinctly because I'm on a panel with a lot of amazing people. The greatest joys are indubitably seeing the children and the land blossom with this work, and it's a real privilege and honor to be able to witness that and to be a part of that. I often mention this just little image that we see when the kids are running from the school across the playground to come to enjoy the things that we can share with them and that they share with us, and it's also really gratifying when you because we have a restoration component to our work as well, so it's also like really joyful when we see the land respond and heal. So the combination of seeing that spark in both the children and the land is definitely my joy. Can also say that a challenge is just I think what everybody experiences in this is political will and institutional support, and making sure that we keep going and get the capacity built up so that we can continue to expand our work. Hopefully you guys can hear all that.
Good For sure. Thank you, Judith Lynn. Okay, we're going to move over to an introduction from Kayla and to answer the question, what have been your greatest joys and what have been or are your biggest challenges in your work towards food literacy?
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate in this panel today. And it's a pleasure to be sitting virtually with these other panelists who are all fantastic people doing important work in the world. I'm Kayla, and I am the site manager and community education coordinator here at the Compost Education Center. We're on unceded and occupied Coast Salish territories here, and I'm sitting right now inside the Straw Bale Learning Classroom here at the Compost Education Center. For those of you who aren't familiar with what the Compost Education Center is all about, we educate residents of the Capital Regional District on all things composting, organic gardening, soil health, and ecological conservation, and how those are connected to climate. We offer free and affordable workshops and programs for people of all ages, youth all the way on up to adults. We have this wonderful demonstration site that I'm here at right now today. It is open to the public. Even during the pandemic, you're welcome to come and experience our gardens here. We've got lots of fantastic things to experience, different composting methods, permaculture practices, organic gardening, natural building techniques. We've got an aquaponics system. I could go on. We also have a lot of free resources here at the Compost Education Center, including our fact sheets, and we operate a hotline so people can email or call with whatever questions you have around composting and gardening. We also sell compost bins and accessible garden resources. And to answer the question, so that's a little bit about the Compost Education Center and myself. My joys with the work that I do in the world is working in a place that's really aligned with my ideals. It's quite special to go to a place that I feel passionate about the work that we do, and it really aligns with who I am and how I want to show up. We have this fantastic demonstration site, and I feel like that's such a special thing to have a space where people can come and experience some of the things that we teach about. And then kind of like Judith was mentioning, it's so special to see these inspired moments that people have. I used to be the child and youth coordinator, and now I teach adults, and it's just wonderful to see when people have aha moments or awe moments when they're learning something or seeing something on the site. It's just super spectacular and really fills my cup. And so that's definitely a joy. And some challenges, I work for a small nonprofit, like so many people that are probably a part of this summit. There's challenges with funding cycles, and there's challenges with feeling like there's always more work I could be doing to further some of the goals that we have as an organization and as a community. And I think it's also a challenge to try and find the blind spots about who we're missing connecting with. So who are the people who are not at the Food Summit that really that either want to and aren't getting reached, or who aren't yet sure that they want to hear about how to further the goals of food literacy and food security. And also for us as an organization, we're constantly facing the challenge and the opportunity about how to decolonize our work and what that looks like for the Compost Education Center, so that we're doing our work in a way that's good in the world and that's healing for all those involved.
Thank you, Kayla. We appreciate that. Now we're going to pass it over to Matthew. Can you please speak to your greatest joys and what have been or are your biggest challenges in your work?
Thanks, Marcus. Yeah, I'm super grateful to be here and to be with people I respect so highly. It's a real honor for me to get a chance to participate today. So thank you for inviting me. Hello, everybody. My name is Matthew Kemshaw. I work currently with the Edward Milne Community School Society. Technically, I'm in a position supporting schools in the Souk School District. I was hired just in January of this year to support the 4 high schools in the Souk School District in integrating their food gardens into the kind of curriculum and practice of the school. So I've been working at Edward Milne Community School, Belmont High School, Royal Bay Secondary School, and the West Shore Annex to care for school gardens and try to get students out learning in those gardens. I get to work a lot with food studies, sustainability, and applied science teachers, getting them and their students out in the gardens. And with COVID, I've been doing a lot of laboring in the gardens and trying to improve the health and diversity of these school gardens and the productivity, I guess, in the vegetable gardens. It's a really neat job. It's a part-time position, and it's grant-based funded right now, and I'm a society staff person. So one of my challenges, I'll start there, is just finding ways to work with the institution as a bit of an outsider. I've always been in this work as an outsider. I've spent maybe 15 years supporting school garden and food literacy work in the nonprofit sector, and navigating issues with union staff and just working with big institutions of education, the whole sort of challenge of state enforced schooling and education, and some of the foundations upon which our education systems were built on, and some of the sort of built-in systemic issues that come with that. It's been a big challenge. Another challenge for me is a bit more deep and personal, is just kind of the feeling of being a drop in the bucket. And I certainly struggle personally often with the feeling of, I don't know if this is too dramatic, but maybe a bit of a feeling of existential dread that what we're doing is not enough. And certainly in the world right now, I've been doing this work for 15 years, and I've seen progress and change for sure. School gardens and food literacy and connection to the environment is on the upswing, I think, in our culture and society, at least the one that I participate in. But we see things that are happening in the world that are also really terrifying, and it's hard. It's a challenge. And I think Judith spoke really well to the biggest joys. It's seeing the kids, seeing adults to connecting with the land and seeing a new path for themselves. I've had a great fortune in my life to be able to work with a lot of young people who are trying to figure out where they want to go with their journey in their life, and being able to participate in helping them find something meaningful that they can dedicate themselves to and that they feel really excited about pursuing, and giving them a chance to, I mean, it's not me that's doing it, of course, but seeing them light up and find purpose and meaning in a life that has real value. That's really joyful. And then also seeing the birds and the bees and the fungi and things coming to life in a place that maybe didn't have as much life before. That's actually probably what gives me the most joy, seeing the non-human world coming back into beauty in a place where maybe it wasn't before. I just love that. So thank you very much for having me.
Thanks so much, Matthew, and thanks for speaking so honestly, with your perspective, which I think many of us share, and I think that's what fuels a lot of our work around these topics. So next, could PEPÁŽIIYE please introduce herself and allow us to know about your greatest joys and what have been some of your biggest challenges in your work?
I'd schedule Kayla, PEPÁŽIIYE the Nesnage, Atlasin at Tiatanio Atla at Chatlip, Ihusenich, Kusila at Motat, Ihashquit, Chaisin la at the Pepekin out, Ihuchistang all Iwala, Nas, Gages to Langen, Chaisin Quintal Judith, Chathetin, Sarah Jim. Huchi stall at the Stalikas, Leah at New School Out, the Husseinich Secondary Leadership School. Good day, everybody. My name is PEPÁŽIIYE. Also Ashley Cooper. I work at the PEPÁŽIIYE. I'm the programs director there, and I've been working there for almost 5 years. I started out there as just a support, and then it just quickly germinated into being an instructor. And then I started helping with like the curriculum and education development. And then that quickly turned into, we formed our nonprofit society. And now I'm the vice president of that. And the programs director, because we've partnered with UVic's Living Lab, and then there's work done down at Sneedquith with the Sneedquith Resiliency Project, and then there was former work done with Sea Change, but I work at the PEPÁŽIIYE, which is located at the New Travel School in Saanich, on Sartlip territory, and Yeah, we've been teaching students there on site. We have a garden there with like a little shishaj, our little forest garden. And then we also have our Kemshaw anok, our little camas meadow. And then inside we have like our introduced vegetables and fruits and berries. And then our nursery site, Judith really highlighted like a huge part of the stuff that we do is for the children. So the biggest joy is seeing the children, like she mentioned, just like running down, screaming our names and hugging us and exchanging medicine with them. So our program, we teach, but we also do a lot of learning from them as well. So our program is based on like scaffold teaching because some of our students have been in our program for so many years. So we try and get them to teach us. That's some of the most magical moments is hearing some of my nieces and nephews tell me stuff that they remember and then tell me that they want to be working, doing the same stuff of work we're doing. Challenges would definitely be, I think, Matthew like really covered that, being like working for a nonprofit or grant-based, that's really challenging. That's not my background, being able to understand like the funding cycles and going after that. Another one too, yeah, the existential dread of like, I just went for a beautiful walk today and just seeing the amount of invasive plants that are out there. Some days we feel like we're on top of the world, you know, when we see a big garbage truck bin of, you know, invasive plants going out. And then other days you look around and think like, oh, we can't. Another huge challenge has been, well, COVID. So that's been a big change in our program. Our program's based on like in-person teaching, really exchanging energies with the students and modeling hands-on work. So to transfer land-based learning online, like that's been really hard and confusing. Yeah, that's it. Heights and Claw. High School at Low Late and Squells. Thank you everybody for listening to my 2 cents.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Last but not least, Leah will introduce herself and let us know a little bit about her greatest joys and some of the challenges in her work. And then we have a treat because after she introduces herself, we're going to get to see a video about one of her main projects she's worked on. Leah, take it away.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone that I am virtually here with. So my name is Leah, and I work with LifeCycles Project Society as the Growing Schools Program Manager. LifeCycles is an organization that works to build community health by bringing people together to grow, harvest, and share local foods through a variety of different projects. The Growing Schools program has been around for over 25 years and works with school communities to build schoolyard gardens and provide experiential learning opportunities for students and teachers. And as for myself, I come from Polish and Ukrainian and Jewish ancestry on both sides of my family and did not grow up on the island, but have been living on Coast Salish territories for the past 13 years. And I really became passionate about food and plants in my early 20s. After growing up in suburban neighborhood where I didn't even know that flowers on a fruit tree turned into fruit. So I came to this learning like later in my life, which helps me relate to a lot of the young people we work with who also are discovering some of this learning for the first time. And I think for me, the joy in this work is that I get to give the gifts that were given to me in my learning journey back to the next generation. And, so that is takes place in sort of sparking young people's excitement and connection with nature and the natural world. Also like awakening a deeper understanding of like the relationship between food and social justice. And then also being able to like inspire and share tools and skills that help us all feel like we can make a meaningful contribution to this world. I think speaking to the existential despair that has been mentioned already, I really feel that food and gardens, they give both like myself and the young people we work with a sense of agency and hope, because there's this immediate sense of like, okay, this is something I can do right now that's going to have meaningful results in my community. So I think that's where some of the joy is for me in being part of that experience. And in terms of challenges, echoing some of what's already been shared, the constraints of working within the nonprofit sector and like having to constantly seek funding to sustain what I believe are really essential programs. Also, as Matt said, sort of working with large institutions and trying to create actual systemic change is very difficult. And I would say, as well as I think Kayla spoke to, as a white settler person, recognizing the role that agriculture has played in displacing Indigenous people from their land and in like present and past colonization. And so there's a sense of responsibility for those of us who are settlers doing this work to understand how we can meaningfully be supporting and amplifying food justice work of Indigenous and BIPOC communities, and decolonizing our own programs as well. So I think it's important work and it's beautiful work, and I'm really grateful to be doing it in this community alongside so many amazing and inspiring people. So thank you. And I think I'm supposed to introduce our video, which is coming next, which is a short documentary about the Seed the City youth program, which we ran last summer in partnership with the Greater Victoria School District and Topsoil Innovative Urban Agriculture. And I look forward to having conversations with everyone following that. Seed the City is a program for high school students where they can gain experience in urban agriculture, earn credits towards graduation, and become part of the local food movement in their city.
What is Seed the City? Sort of a program which really helps educate people growing food, but moreover, it helps people sort of learn about the mentality of growing food and sort of learn about the truth about how food is actually grown. We get course credit for this for grade 12, sort of work experience credit. So it's sort of good to be getting that out of the way so I won't have to worry about it later.
To be completely honest, I thought that this was going to be something in my summer that I was going to be like, okay, I have to wake up early, go to this program, garden all day, but I actually find myself looking forward to it every day. And that has honestly been really surprising to me and pretty amazing.
This program is unique because it brings young people together at this pivotal time in their development where they can be exposed to these solutions and opportunities to pursue career pathways and learning in fields that are going to make positive change in the world. And through this experience, they build self-esteem, their mental health improves, and they gain skills that will stay with them for the rest of their lives.
It's therapeutic. It's a way for me to have something to do and something to feel good about, seeing my progress, and you get a reward at the end. It's also just something that a lot of people like, and it introduced me to a great community. Gardening community in Victoria is terrific, very helpful,
So we teamed up with LifeCycles to implement topsoil microfarms onto schools to be able to show the kids how to grow food, but how to kind of get that to market as well, and to also be able to deal with customers and deal with money and kind of, you know, learn about food production as a whole, not just growing food, but how to potentially make it a job or a career.
It's really good for kids of our age to sort of learn about this stuff, because over like the few past decades, like the world has become like hugely sort of supply chain based and like industrialized. So people don't really know where the food is coming from. You know, they just go to the supermarket, you know, they grab some apples, some like strawberries, that kind of stuff. So I think it's really important that people learn how like food is sort of made and processed.
I think it's important to start learning about your food from a young age, even younger than I am, because then you have that basis of knowledge. You can go further, or you can just stop there and continue on with your other passions in life, but having that good building block on food security and your nutrition and the nutritional value of certain foods is just crucial. It's crucial.
It's very hands-on, which I enjoy, instead of rather being just in a lecture format, as after we learn something, we get to like sort of do it.
I like growing vegetables so I can feel a sense of accomplishment.
Amazing stuff. I don't even think I've seen this newly updated video now that there's masks in some of these images. Before we move into the breakouts, I just wanted to really say thanks to all of the panelists for being a part of this and for and sharing with us your experiences in your work. I know that there's a lot of challenges that can happen in this work, and it sometimes doesn't feel like it's moving at the speed that you might want to see, but it's good to see that so many of the youth in this community are in such good hands with all of these different educators. These are incredible programs. As someone who's lived in different parts of Canada, both east and now out on the west coast, I have to say this is some of the most vibrant and innovative programming that I've become aware of in my work. And it's interesting to see, because I don't think that Janelle and I fully were planning that it was a lot of our educators were focused on youth. But it's interesting to see that there is so much attention being given to sharing these incredible possibilities of knowledge with the youth by our panelists today. So I just wanted to say thanks to them. Now we're going to move into the breakout sessions. So the breakout sessions, I'll pass it over to Janelle to explain. So.
Thanks. Yeah, and I just wanted to also thank the panelists in the amazing work that you do. And now everyone is in for a special treat, because our panelists are going to be running 4 different breakout groups. And you'll see the next slide here will show the 4 different breakout groups. And so you can choose which one you would like to go into. And we do have scheduled about 30 minutes that you can go into your breakout group. And your facilitator, each one of the panelists, will be posing questions and engaging with you during the breakout groups. So very exciting. So the 4 breakout groups, I'll just go through them quickly here, and then you can choose. And we've been told that the best way for you to choose is by renaming yourself. So if you know how to do that, you can rename yourself and put the number of the breakout group that you would like to go into before your name. And if you do not know how to do that, don't worry, just hang out or put in the chat which breakout group you would like to go into, and we'll direct you into that appropriate breakout group. So here are your 4 breakout groups. So with Matthew, food literacy at school. So that's number 1. Breakout session number 2 is soil stewardship connections with Kayla. Breakout session 3 is growing youth food leaders with Leah. And breakout session 4, all ecosystems are food ecosystems, Connecting Teachings of Indigenous Foods with Food Gardens. And that's with PEPÁJIYE and Judith. So please do choose your breakout room that you would like to go into. And then we will join back following to hear about your exciting discussions.
Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed your breakout sessions. I know I popped into all of the sessions and saw some very lively discussion. We wanted to just take about 10 minutes to have the panelists give some high-level overview of what the discussion was like. What were some of the interesting topics that were touched upon? Any sort of interesting things that they felt that they heard that were either spoke to them or that might have come from the audience and was an innovative new way of thinking about the topic that they were speaking on. To begin, if Matthew, you were ready, we're wondering if you could give us, in a couple minutes, a high-level overview of your discussion in your breakout group.
For sure. Thanks, Marcus. I was very kind of pleased, I guess, what came out of our breakout room, that you never know what's going to happen. And the people who spoke so eloquently and beautifully. It was really touching, actually. I feel quite moved by the experience. We started by talking about how to create a school as being what's a positive food future in schools. And we talked a bit about creating a healthy food environment in school and thinking holistically about how we can integrate food as being an important organizing principle in schools. We recognize that currently what's learned about food in schools is often learned by what is excluded instead of what is included. Students are being sort of rushed through really quick lunches, and we thought there's an important culture sort of shift that needs to happen to recognize that food is kind of a sacred thing, and that it needs to be respected and appreciated, and that the current way that we eat and that we think about food, I think, at school is it's quick and passive, and it's not well integrated. And so there was a lot of really eloquent and beautiful things that were said about the need for reconnecting to the kind of core essence of what food is. It's like it is we are what we eat, right? And being able to really think about that deeply and to design. We were talking about how we can design schools and educational experiences around an appreciation of food and what it really is. And we thought we need to change, some cultural values and some spiritual kind of outlooks to really create the food future in schools that we imagine. Leave it there.
Thanks, Matthew. Yeah, I also agree that the shortened lunch times really does speak to where we're at as a culture around food and eating together. I would like to see that those times elongated. Next up, Kayla, could you please give us a little overview on your session and the discussion that took place on soil stewardship?
Yes, I was equally pleased with the conversations that went on. We talked a lot about how soil health and soil quality contribute to food secure communities as well as food literate communities. And then we talked about what soil stewardship means and what it looks like to actually care for the life that is under our feet, and how without healthy soil, we have no healthy food. So we talked about different ways that people as individuals could care for their soil by adding organic matter in the form of adding compost to soil, adding leaves to soil, keeping soil covered, digging less, replacing and replenishing nutrients. Even if it's just pots that you have on your balcony, that's soil that you have to steward. And so in what ways can you really care for that soil? And then I also just brought in the piece, I suppose, to the conversation about how, looking even broader, how we can encourage people in power to advocate for and put in place policies around soil stewardship. there's so much life below our feet. And actually one of the participants spoke, Matt, you're inspiring me to share that one of the participants in my breakout room shared about how we need to have a feeling of reverence for the soil that's beneath our feet and all of the intricate web of activity that happens in healthy soil, and how that is all sort of orchestrated and connecting together to feed our food. And so in what ways can we really develop that sort of feeling of sacredness towards soil, because that really is the beginning point for healthy food.
Amazing. Thank you, Kayla. Yeah, I really appreciated having you on the panel, thinking about soil, and it's really the root of everything. And it really is a great way of teaching kids about food literacy, because without soil, obviously, none of this food can be grown. And it really allows us to tie in the interconnectivity of everything, all ecosystems. So really appreciate that aspect of your presentation. Next, Leah, could you please give an overview of your discussion on growing youth food?
Sure. Yeah, we just touched on some of the elements that help to build successful engagement with youth around food and food systems. And I think a big piece of that is bringing food-based programs to where young people already are, which is quite often at school. And so I think some of the barriers that were spoken to was around just that working with the institutions and really creating, figuring out how we can meaningfully integrate food system and food-based learning into the education system, and how important it is to do that. And we actually had a former Seed the City youth was part of our conversation, and shared the way that being part of programs at her school actually helped her realize that like food and agriculture was an actual career pathway that she could choose and something she could pursue with her life. And she's now studying at UBC in the Land and Food Systems department. So I think the conversation circled back again to this point of emphasizing the importance of school food programs and the exposure that can take place through those experiences. More was said, but leave it there for now.
Thanks, Leah. I've been really fortunate to work closely with Leah on a number of projects over the past year, and she's one of the most passionate people around working with youth that I've ever met. And the Seed the City program is truly an inspiring program, something that I think we should all be very proud of to have in our community. Last but not least, I was in this session for quite a while, and I heard some amazing conversations. PEPÁŽIYE and Judith Lynn, could you give us a little update on all ecosystems are food ecosystems? Your session, please.
Not sure who should. I'll speak for a second and then pass it over to PEPÁŽIYE. Yeah, we had a great time, really diving into concepts around decolonization, indigenization, and how we look at ecosystem restoration in the context of food education and working with youth. And yeah, that's really exciting. That's definitely knocks off essentially significant checklist of all my passions. So really, I found it was really wonderful to hear how people were in our group, how people were really advocating for native plants and ecosystems and doing their best to find out what that meant for them and how to educate people around them. That was super inspiring for me and super wonderful to know that that's out there and in the world. And we, we're not kind of like, all of us here together aren't like just fighting the fight kind of on our own. There's so many people who have been inspired by concepts around native plants and are willing to in some ways as non-Indigenous people to humble themselves to learn more. And I just found that was a real takeaway for me with the session. PEPÁŽIE? You're muted.
I think you summed it up really well there with what you summarized with our session. A lot was covered. It honestly felt like it was just a 2-minute group get together. So trying to summarize more of that. I wish we had longer time to interact with people more. I did hear a lot of uncertainty, feeling like some people aren't offering enough or don't know enough. So hopefully I was able to encourage people to keep learning. We're all at different levels of learning. We all have amazing qualities that we can bring forth, and to do that as a nice energy exchange and knowledge exchange. So I'm really grateful for this opportunity. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you again to our panelists who ran the breakout groups. Sounds like some really inspiring conversation and discussion was had, and it sounds like there could have been more time as well. We thought we are giving half an hour would be good for the conversation, but sounds like there were a lot of engaged and people wanted to participate further in conversation. So that's wonderful. And I encourage you now, as we're just going to be moving into talking about next steps and wrapping up for our session today, for all of you who joined a breakout group, what was one takeaway? Maybe if you want to share that in the chat right now, then everyone can see what vibrant discussions were had in all 4 of the breakout groups. And then we can also save all of those wonderful comments and share them back with our panelists at the same time. So again, thank you so much. We wanted to talk next about next steps. So if we could go to that next slide. Really, there are many ways that we are coming together in our community around food literacy. And I feel like with our panelists today, I feel like the next generation, the children and youth in our community are in such good hands, but that there's work still to be done around how can we pave the way, make it a little bit easier for those who are these amazing food literacy educators in our community. How can we support them in the work that they're doing and support through all of the important systems and institutions that we have? And I think Leah was saying too, going to where they are and implementing these food literacy programs is so important. And so I want to call all of you to join with me in this work. I know a lot of you already are doing this work in our community, but what are those ways that we can join together and join our voices together, our advocacy to ensure that we are moving towards that food future that Matthew was talking about, like, for example, in our schools, creating a culture shift, a culture change. And it's not just within our schools, but within our communities as well. And I think if we are stronger, if we come with more voices saying the same messages. And so that's what we wanted to talk about with next steps are how can we join forces and really enhance the food literacy within our community. And so I'm so fortunate to be working with CR Fair and to be doing work around food literacy and to be creating ways that we can come together. So if you haven't joined with us in the past, there are many ways that you can moving forward if you're inspired by these conversations and want to hear more on what we're doing. My contact information is there, as well as we have a food literacy Google group where you can share out information and events and resources and ask questions of others who are really keen on food literacy. And we, like I was saying earlier on in the presentation, was saying that we do have a food literacy steering committee, and it's definitely not exclusive, and we always want more voices. So if you are interested, I've spoken with a number of people recently who are interested in learning more on what's happening within our community and the various initiatives that we do have on the go. So just let me know. I'm happy to chat with you at any time, and you can join in our meetings and future events and opportunities going forward. So very exciting. So please do let me know, and I'm happy to talk with you about that. So next slide. Now I think we wanted to just say a huge thanks again to all of our panelists today for all your enthusiasm and your expertise, and for all of the work that you do on a daily basis. And I know that you're all inspiring educators, and that's why the children come running into the garden spaces where you are and are so inspired by what they get to do with you and the hands-on learning that they get to do. So thank you so much. I also wanted to say a huge thanks to the team behind bringing the summit together and inviting Marcus and I to co-facilitate this session. I think it's been a really wonderful experience, different of course from previous years. We can't see all of your wonderful faces out there in the audience, but we know that you're there, and we know that you're keen and interested, as we are, in the topic of food literacy. So thank you so much for your participation today. And maybe I'll pass it over to Marcus for the final word.
Thanks, Janelle. Yeah, also just wanted to say thanks to the CR Fair team, Sunset Labs here as well, the work that they're doing. It's been a real pleasure, and it's been very professional being here and trying to do a presentation such as this in this kind of new COVID situation. But yeah, just 80 people were on this in this session to begin with, which is really amazing. And when I look through it, there's a lot of people in there that whose names I don't know. And so it'd be great to get to know people. Who are these out in the community that are interested and passionate about this? And coming together and forming more relationships, I think, is really important if we want to make change. So I just wanted to say that. And for those who are working with schools, I'm really proud to say that Farm to School BC now has grants open. They're open for the next month and a half. So if you are working in schools and you're needing support, please do visit our website. There's funding there to help support your programs. And within the capital region, I am here also to help support those kinds of programs as well. So yeah, thanks to everyone, and thanks for Janelle. She really helped pull it along here. Thank you.